Oh, it's setting in. Everybody has got the Monday morning feels after watching Super Bowl Sunday last night. Super Bowl 60 is in the books. We're going to get it covered for you from every possible angle. It's Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. We're back in our regular time slot, 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern time, where we will be for the foreseeable future, hanging out with you bright and early as everybody tries to adjust to the fact that the day after the Super Bowl still isn't a national holiday. I should say, Kenyon Martin going to join us today. We'll get some NBA talking, and we're going to get some figure skating talking live from Italy with Nathan Chen going to join us. So plenty to come, but we start the show, and we'll spend much of the show, Caroline, today talking about what we saw last night. The Seattle Seahawks are Super Bowl champions in one of the most dominant defensive Super Bowl performances I have ever seen in my life. Don't let the final score trick anybody into thinking this was anything other than Seattle absolutely controlling from the outset all the way to the end of the game. 2 quarters of football where New England didn't even sniff a first down, 29-13. I'm swaggy walking, Caroline, because I told you it was going to be a slaughter, and it was.
It was a slaughtering of epic proportion. And like you said, don't let the final score fool you. And like you said, don't let the final box score fool you, because there were some explosives to be had for the Patriots in the fourth quarter at a time where the game was already signed, sealed, delivered, taken care of by the Seattle Seahawks. But through 3 quarters, the Patriots couldn't do anything. I mean, how many 3-and-outs did they have through the first 3 quarters? It was like 9 of their first 11 drives were 3-and-outs. That Seattle defense was swarming. It was the type of pressure they were putting on Drake Maye that if you blinked, you missed it. Because it came so quickly, because they were putting so much pressure specifically on that left side of the offensive line. I mean, if anybody deserves a hug this morning, it is Will Campbell, because he was getting worked all night long, and the broadcast for a majority of that game was calling out that rookie inexperienced left side of the line. But we talked about this, Fitz. We talked about the Patriots offensive line last week, that Will Campbell and that their left guard as well were playing like rookie offensive linemen that were seeing their first little bits of AFC postseason football going up against that Seattle defensive front. They didn't stand a chance. So sure, New England was able to run the ball a little bit more in the fourth quarter. Sure, Drake Maye had a couple of explosive plays through the air in the fourth quarter, but the true story of that game was Seattle's stifling defense, which has been the story all season long. But I don't think a lot of people gave Seattle's defense credit. Us who we talk about this sport every single day, we did. But I think the average NFL fan didn't quite realize how dominant that unit was until they dominated New England in dramatic fashion. Which kind of begs the question, Fitzy, if you want to look at that game last night, how do we want to rank the Seattle defense and their performance last night and great defensive performances in Super Bowl history? Because I think that what we saw last night deserves to at least be in the conversation.
Look, the last time that a team was held scoreless as long as the Patriots were the 70s. That's how long we saw this go on. This was such a controlling, dominant game. To me, it was an all-time great. And, where's it rank? It ranks near the top. Like, I remember the Ravens defense, and we always talk about the fact that Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl because of that Ravens defense. But there was a sense when you watched that Baltimore team that once Baltimore got to 10 points, you were screwed. You were never going to get to 10 points against that defense. That's the way I felt in this game last night. To me, the most staggering part of it is when it went 12-0, I really did sit there and feel like it was insurmountable. 12 points. I felt like 12 points was going to be too much. And certainly we'll talk about the Patriots side of this later. But when you talk about the dominance of this Seattle defense, it's the fact that they were able to do that without blitzing over and over and over again. When you talk about the greatness of this defense, particularly when you run a 4-2-5, one of the things they continually tell you is you're supposed to be able to run against them. The number of times that I saw that defensive line just swallow up a hole and swallow up the Patriots running backs, it just felt like New England could never get ahead of the sticks, right? So Drake Maye's running for his life. Drake Maye seems to be throwing the ball all over the place, just trying to get rid of it because he's getting sacked over and over and over again. But then again, at the same time, they can't get into positive down and distance scenarios because they can't run the football, and they're doing it without having to send blitzes every time. That's a level of dominance I don't even know that we were ready for. As high on this defense as we were going in, I think we saw a top 3 defensive Super Bowl performance of all time in this game. And I think we saw maybe the most creative game plan we've ever seen from a defense in the Super Bowl, simply because you couldn't tell where things were coming from, when it was coming, and how they were going to manipulate it, but they just continually did.
It was a masterclass by Mike Macdonald, playing into what they do best, and also kind of having some new tricks out of his bag in that game. Several looks that we hadn't seen before from that Seattle defense. And it was like, where'd that come from? So, yeah, it was right up there with the Legion of Boom against Denver in Super Bowl 48. Right up there with the Baltimore Ravens defense in that 2000 season when they held the Giants to just 7 points, 2.5 yards per play, 152 total yards, forced 5 turnovers. When we talk about the greatest defensive performances that we have ever seen in Super Bowl history, that one that we saw yesterday was right up there with the best of them. And I think what makes it even more impressive, Fitzy, is that the Seahawks offense wasn't anything overly special. Sam Darnold was fine. He didn't do anything overly sexy. He didn't turn the ball over. He didn't make those fatal mistakes that I think so many people were fearful that Sam Darnold would make in this game, because he has made them in big games in the past. But Jackson Smith-Njigba was largely quiet for a majority of the game. He left for a bit, but even when he went into the locker room, I believe it was concussion protocol, but when he went into the locker room, he had one catch for 4 yards, maybe 2 catches for a handful of yards, whatever it was. Jackson Smith-Njigba was largely held in check. Now, credit to Christian Gonzalez, who had a heck of a game last night, and credit to that New England Patriots defense for being able to hold Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith-Njigba in check for a majority of the game. But the Seahawks offense didn't do much, at least through the air, but they didn't need to, Fitz.
That's the crazy part about it, is that you're right. I mean, if we go back and just talk about the way the Seattle offense played, I think most of us would be surprised that the game got out of hand the way it did. But that comes because that defense was just absolutely so incredible. And, part of that is that they've got so many guys on the back end of that defense that can come up to the line of scrimmage, and you just don't know where they're going. You don't know what they're going to do out of these formations. So I think Mike Macdonald, and look, I was watching the pregame show. I think a lot of us were. And it was funny because Kyle Shanahan was asked specifically about attacking this defense, and he made a joke. He's like, I know you want me to be an expert, but I haven't scored any touchdowns against them, so what do I know? That coming from one of the better offensive minds in the NFL. And I just kept watching last night saying, wait a minute. Shanahan shut down by Mike Macdonald, right? McVay beaten by Mike Macdonald. Like, we're talking about 2 of the best offensive minds in the game, 2 people that everybody wants to coach from their tree because they're so spectacular what they do. And both of the coaches I just mentioned watch their teams get beat by that man. I mean, I think this was one of those transcendent moments where we now have to suddenly talk about Mike Macdonald in a different light. Like, I know it's only year 2, but when you win a Super Bowl the way Mike Macdonald just won that Super Bowl, when your defense is as incredible as his defense was through that run, when we start having the conversations of who the best coaches in the NFL are, it is time to add Mike Macdonald to that top shelf. Like, when you walk into a bar and you say, I want top shelf vodka, well, if you want top shelf head coach, Mike Macdonald is now squarely on that list, particularly because in the biggest moment when there was no wiggle room, when that defense needed to be great, it was. I mean, it was great over and over and over again. He dialed up the right things at the right time. He attacked that offense perfectly, and that just was the theme of the entire postseason. So I'm looking at a head coach that I think we have to talk about differently today, because this completes a run of dominance that just absolutely cements that he is one of the guys that you look at and say, yes, the top of the best of the best coaches in the NFL. Mike Macdonald, to me, now belongs squarely on that list.
I've said several times before, I think Mike Macdonald is the Sean McVay of the defensive side of the ball. And now that he has a Super Bowl to show for it, that just puts him in a different light. Winning a championship puts you into a different stratosphere. I wouldn't say that Mike Macdonald is quite on the level of coach as Andy Reid or Sean McVay, but he definitely belongs in that top tier. why I wouldn't leapfrog Mike Macdonald over those two guys is because I think that time on task is important. That we've seen Andy Reid consistently get to the mountaintop year over year over year. We've seen Sean McVay do the exact same thing. I expect Mike Macdonald to have the Seattle Seahawks right back into the conversation year over year over year, which would cement Mike Macdonald in that elite coaching tier. But before I do that, I just need more time. I need to see Mike Macdonald do it year over year over year. But he belongs
Let me
into
ask
that
you
same
something on that,
conversation.
though.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something on that because I agree with the concept of it. But Mike Macdonald now, you see that most wins in a season by a head coach under 40. He's only 2 years older than McVay was when McVay got his Super Bowl. They have an equal number of Super Bowls. And I think you're right. Like, time on task matters. But Kyle Shanahan has 0 Super Bowl wins at this point. And we talk about Kyle Shanahan like he's just an absolute golden god in the NFL. I just watched Mike
Because I think he is.
win a Super Bowl. But if I'm going to put Kyle Shanahan in that category, and Macdonald has beaten Kyle Shanahan and now has a Super Bowl, how can I not put Macdonald in that category?
Nick Sirianni has a Super Bowl, but if I were the Eagles, I would probably consider moving on from Nick Sirianni. So I think there's nuance that has to be shown there because no, Kyle Shanahan doesn't have a Super Bowl, but he's been to how many? 2? 3? He's been to multiple. And he's been able to make the San Francisco 49ers a Super Bowl contender year over year, despite injury, despite moving on from a quarterback that got them to the Super Bowl in Jimmy Garoppolo. He's turned Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, into a reliable franchise quarterback. So that's the time on task thing here. I don't think it's just, okay, do you have a Super Bowl or do you not? And that you have to be forced into 2 different categories. It's, can we see it year over year? I mean, Mike Macdonald is what? This was year 3 for Mike Macdonald. So yes, I expect Mike Macdonald to consistently be in the conversation, but I think it is different when you do it over the span of 10 to 15 years versus doing it once in the span of 3. But a point that you just made, I think, is an important one because for some reason, I feel like the commentary surrounding the Seahawks team is, yeah, well, they're good, but how good are they? That we are so quick to crown. Last year, we were so quick to crown the Philadelphia Eagles the next dynasty in the NFL. We were so quick to crown the Kansas City Chiefs, this great, fantastic, impenetrable football team. And they're great. Those teams were great. Do not get me wrong. I don't feel like we're giving the Seahawks team, and I say we, not you and I, Fitz, I'm saying just as a general football society, enough credit. We're almost viewing it as like they're not a worthy champion. I'm sorry. This Seattle team got through the 49ers 3 times, got through the Rams in the NFC Championship game, were the number 1 overall seed in an incredibly deep and competitive NFC, won the NFC West, the deepest and most competitive division in football. What more did they need to do? What more did Seattle need to do to prove to us that they not just were a worthy 1 seed, but an incredibly worthy Super Bowl champion? To your point, Mike Macdonald went mano-a-mano against Kyle Shanahan, dominated him. Mano-a-mano against Sean McVay. And while that wasn't the Seahawks' best defensive performance, when it came down to the Rams were at the goal line in a have-to-have-it moment, Mike Macdonald's defense stopped them. Like, that is, yes, he has gone against the brightest offensive minds in this league, and he's won time and time again.
I think that's part of this that is incredible to me. To me, if you've watched this show all throughout football season, I've been loud on the Seahawks for a long time. But the thing of it is, to me, as we sit right now, I think the best team throughout the duration of this NFL season just won the Super Bowl. And that doesn't always happen. Sometimes the best team doesn't win. To me, the Seahawks, it's not just about the fact that they're Super Bowl champions. It's that throughout the course of this entire season, if I have my power rankings, the Seahawks have been number 1 on those power rankings for a long time. The Seattle Seahawks weren't just the best team on Sunday. They've been the best team in the NFL for months. And I hope that this finally acknowledges how good this team is because their defense is spectacular, because they do have, I think, one of the top 3 wide receivers in the NFL, because they have a quarterback that seems to have gotten right. Like, it wasn't Sam Darnold's best game. He even said afterwards, I didn't have my best stuff. But what's amazing to me is as we sit right now with this whole thing done, the Seattle Seahawks become the first team in NFL history to win a Super Bowl with 0 turnovers in the playoffs. Not a single one. They never turned the football over at all. And they did all of this in a game where I'm sitting there at the end of the game, and people are saying, well, I don't know who's going to be the MVP. Really? Because Kenneth Walker III went out and put on a clinic. Kenneth Walker, every time they needed a big run, and just when you thought the line of scrimmage was collapsed, there were so many times that the line of scrimmage left Kenneth Walker nothing. So he popped out, and he ran around the edges, and he turned nothing into 10 yards. And then all of a sudden, you would literally watch the defenders from the Patriots stay on the edges because they can't let him pop out, and he would stand. Not even run. Just stand behind the line of scrimmage. And he's back to going, wait, boom, and then blast through it, right? Like that to me, watching a level of patient running, Chris Collinsworth said one of the runs was the most patient I've ever seen. I don't know that he was wrong about that. Like, we watched Kenneth Walker go put on a clinic, and even that, at the end of it, people are like, not sure who the MVP is. Like, any other running back has that sort of game, it is clear who the MVP is. So, like, at some point through all of this, I think this is going to be the awakening where we start to acknowledge who Seattle is today, and these players in this team are going to be seen differently for the next several years because of what happened yesterday.
It's so true. There were times when Kenneth Walker, it felt like he was just standing there. Ball in his hand, play is live. He's just standing there waiting, stutter stepping. Boom, pops off for 20 plus yards. It was really cool to watch the level of discipline that you have to approach a play in that way in the biggest moments, in the biggest game of the season. The level of trust that you have to have in your offensive line for them to block and create a hole from you when the hole isn't clearly automatically there, right there in that second. And looking at it with a running back MVP in the Super Bowl, you could make a very fair argument that their kicker deserved to be MVP. You could make a fair argument that their punter deserved to be MVP. You could make a very fair argument that several different defensive players deserve to be MVP. Derek Hall with 2 sacks. How many times have we talked about Derek Hall this season? Not very many. Maybe that's on us. Devin Witherspoon with some massive plays in that game could have been in the conversation for MVP. We're talking about a totally and completely complete and deep football team. For so long, it has felt like the formula for building a championship contender, and we can get into this even more. The formula for building a championship contender is elite quarterback, elite coach, put enough pieces around him, let the quarterback cook. This year and last year with the Philadelphia Eagles, we are seeing if you have a quarterback that can just take care of business, takes care of the football, doesn't do too much, doesn't get too sexy with it, doesn't need to be in that elite tier. You have a quarterback that takes care of business with an elite defense and elite playmakers around him, like Jalen Hurts had with Saquon Barkley and the wide receiver core in the defense last season, like Sam Darnold had this year. That's a recipe for dominant Super Bowl success. So maybe the blueprint's changing.
You're right. You're 1,000% right. If we, in a copycat league, if we are looking at how Super Bowls are won right now, if you just watch the last couple of years, the answer is clear. Dynamic weapons that can absolutely crush you all over the field, that have that 2 years in a row. A running back that you can't handle in big games, have that 2 years in a row. A defense that absolutely hits the quarterback every time you turn around, have that 2 years in a row. And a quarterback that just doesn't screw it up. And by the way, everybody looking at this right now, I should note, Kenneth Walker III, Super Bowl MVP, set to be a free agent this offseason, which has plenty of teams salivating. And then I will remind you that as we sit right now, the team with the 6th most cap space in the entire NFL going into this offseason is the Seattle Seahawks. So Kenneth Walker III can stay right where he is. This could be, I know, everybody says this, we'll do some of this later. Is this the beginning of a moment for the Seattle Seahawks? Plenty to break down on this Super Bowl. We're going to hit it from every angle over the next 2 hours, but we also have other sports to get into, including some injury updates from the Olympics. We will get you caught up on the latest from a horrific crash for Lindsey Vonn coming up next on Yahoo Sports Daily.
At the very top of my list, we need finality to Aspinall versus Gunn.
Yeah.
We need finality to this.
Have to.
I just want to see this fight play out because guess what? It was a very entertaining fight and it was playing out in a way that I think a lot of people didn't think it would play out. So I need to see that fight. I have to see that fight. The division needs to see that fight. They both need to see that fight. They both earned it and deserved it, and we can't move on without that fight.
Do the Spurs still take Dylan Harper over Con Knippel and VJ Edgecombe?
I think for me, if I was to do it all over again, I would still take the best pick available, and that is Dylan Harper. I mean, you see, he just is such an elite creator.
Prior to the draft, Mo, I was pretty consistent in saying that I would trade down and take a Con Knippel. Con at 4, I still think would have been the best possible outcome for San Antonio, and I feel that way even more strongly at this point.
All football teams are dams. Some of them have a ton of cracks, some of them have a few cracks. It's all about who faces enough water pressure from their schedule to expose the cracks. Most of the time when you're playing in the Big Ten or the SEC, you're going to face several tests that will expose your cracks. I don't think Ohio State did this year. They faced Texas early in the year, and they just never faced enough pressure to expose the cracks.
Did you notice that the scoring totals had fallen in the new year, that the New Year's resolution apparently was to bring physicality back?
A couple of years ago when it was all of a sudden everybody scored 50, 60, 70. And then like the air went out of the ball for a month. And it was like in the middle of the season, the way the rules were being called kind of changed and scoring started to drop.
Look, to be fair, Dan, it could be, hey, everyone just magically figured out how to play legal defense.
Lindsey Vonn underwent surgery Sunday on a left leg fracture she suffered at the outset of her run in the women's downhill final. Vonn, 41, was competing just 9 days after suffering an ACL tear. If you haven't seen the video, it's a tough watch. It is obviously a tough moment for someone that means so much to Olympic history in the United States. And obviously, Caroline, first and foremost, I think everybody's hearts are broken. I cannot imagine, in most sports, when you have a horrific, and this was a horrific leg injury, the first thing I thought about is most of the time the trainers can get to you right away. Most of the time somebody is there to help alleviate your pain within seconds, within minutes. You are in a situation where you are being helped. This happened as she was going downhill on a ski slope. Like it's just to have to be air vac'd out, all of the things that you think about what it meant for her, just pain tolerance and what this means for her life. This was a tough watch and a heartbreaking moment, and I cannot imagine the amount of pain she was in, but also just what's going through your mind when you're fighting and you're skiing with a fully ruptured ACL, and then on top of all of that, a serious leg fracture that you immediately have to go into surgery for.
And that photo is really, really difficult to see. And I can't imagine the level of physical pain, but I also have to think about the level of emotional pain, the level of mental pain, because unfortunately there are times in life, and I'm sure you've experienced, Fitzy, where you're looking at something that, a friend or a family member, or just someone in the public eye has gone through, and you have to ask yourself, how much bad luck can one person be dealt? Like, how much can one person withstand? And I felt that way when Lindsey Vonn ruptured her ACL last week. That, man, like, she's just suffered injury setback after injury setback, so much so that she retired. And then she scratches and claws her way back and trains herself into a position to make this miraculous Olympic comeback. This story that I think warmed all of our hearts. This story that makes us fall in love with sports, this underdog story of greatness, of triumph, of relentlessness. And then she just gets hit with yet another setback. And then here is another one. Even when she ruptured her ACL, we saw videos of her squatting. We saw videos of her jump roping. We saw videos of her still training, even with this horrific injury. And you couldn't help but want to fight for Lindsey Vonn and cheer for Lindsey Vonn and continue to watch this great comeback story. And then yet another weird fluky injury setback where her pole and her ski gets caught in a gate. And it makes me just want to give her a hug. It makes me sad for her physically, mentally, emotionally. It makes me sad for us as Americans cheering for Team USA, that we won't get this story, this comeback story, this great American Olympic triumphant story from Lindsey Vonn. It's not fair. Life isn't fair. The world isn't fair. Sports aren't fair. But this is one where you look at it and you just have to think, like, it's just not fair. I hate this for Lindsey Vonn.
As you point out, her arm hooked the gate. It spun her off balance. She then can't get her control back. A lot of conversation about should she have been out there anyway, and I know a lot of people will talk about that. She wanted the opportunity at 41, and one thing we talked about last week, I think in fairness, is that you never know how these things are going to play out, but at 41 years old, she's not likely to get another chance at an Olympic opportunity. So certainly we saw the training videos, we saw the inspiration, we saw her clapping back to people on social media about what her full extent of her injury was. And to go through all of that, to put yourself mentally in the toughness and the spot to be able to turn around and say, hey, this is that moment. She was flying down that hill. And, we just sometimes we forget the risk that Olympians put themselves at just to try and win this medal. They certainly don't get rich to the same level that other athletes in professional sports do. They certainly don't necessarily have the same year-round everywhere they go glory that, many football players or basketball players and so on have. They do it for a different reason. And Lindsey Vonn at 41 years old, putting herself back out there, having that opportunity, I just keep thinking about the anguish. And again, the videos that were out there that are a tough watch, it hits me. You can hear her wailing in pain, obviously. And as I mentioned, 13 minutes. She was on the ground for 13 minutes before they were able to medevac her out there. And I just think about what's going through your mind in that moment. And it's just such a reminder to all of us that wearing these colors and wearing the flag and being an Olympian, the sacrifice that goes into it, the meaning that it has to every single person gets the opportunity to represent their country, and the risk that they take is just so incredible. What they put their bodies through is so incredible. Everything that you train for and a life that you sacrifice all comes down to one moment. And that one moment, depending on your sport, is just a few minutes long. And one small twist of fate in that process can change everything. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for all of us. You're absolutely right. Team USA in general, as they're all out there, are going to have to figure out how to put all of this weirdness and emotion behind them. They're going to have to go out and continue what they do. But this is just a heavy, heavy moment for every Olympian, for every Olympic fan, for Team USA, for everybody in Italy. This is just the worst case scenario moment that you hope never happens to any athlete that's putting themselves on the line for their country and for this glory. But particularly for Lindsey, she'll come back. She'll be Lindsey Vonn because she's a rock star of a human being. But man, this is just the sort of thing that physically and mentally will stick with her forever in the way that this went down.
She's an epic badass of a human being. I mean, even though we won't get that payoff moment, that moment of Lindsey Vonn going for the glory, of Lindsey Vonn potentially going up on the podium and winning a medal and completing this truly incredible comeback story, I think it's just the effort. It's the attempt. It's Lindsey Vonn trying to come back. It's Lindsey Vonn, somebody who's been a mainstay in the Winter Olympics really for a majority of my lifetime. Somebody who has been very largely, squarely in the public eye for the greater part of the last 2 decades. She's been competing since 2006. Imagine that. There are some kids that have never even experienced life before Lindsey Vonn as a United States Olympian. So, she's been a mainstay in this sport for so long. Just the fact that she tried to come back after retiring, after suffering as many injuries as she had. Yahoo Sports put out this graphic that I think just put into context for me and probably so many people everything that Lindsey Vonn has gone through. Sprained her right ACL, several broken fingers and broken arms, another torn ACL and MCL, another torn ACL later that year, another torn MCL again later that year, broke her ankle in August 2015, multiple fractures in her left knee in February 2016, fractured humerus in her right arm later that year, another torn LCL and a meniscus, and then another nerve injury, and then another ACL. If that is over the less than 20 years, how many times has she torn an ACL? How many times has she injured her knee? Yet she still continues to come back. So even though we didn't get that truly glorious moment of Lindsey Vonn being there and showing up and being on the podium, just the sheer and utter grit that Lindsey Vonn has shown trying to make this comeback is nothing short of miraculous.
This is just the beginning of Olympic coverage that you'll have. By the way, we're going to be covering the Olympics a lot on this show, especially getting some people from Italy hanging out with us. We have experts coming in all throughout the shows every single day. So if you're looking for Olympic coverage, you want to know what's going on where, we've got it for you. Even Nathan Chen going to join us at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. We'll get his thoughts on what we've seen from the quad god and everything else in figure skating. Plenty of Olympic coverage to come at you. But in the meantime, coming up next, while we're talking about the Super Bowl, we're trying to figure out what it means for this man, Sam Darnold. Has he finally gotten rid of all of the ghosts? We'll figure it out next.
One school that's doing some work in there right now, very quietly, is the Florida Gators. At the time of us taping this, Florida is sitting there with a top 10 class. And you're like, JD, wait a second. Florida's got a top 10 class? Who have they added? And I think this portal class in general for John Summerall is a good reflection of just the overall vibe, attitude, persona of what you're going to get from John Summerall during his time in Gainesville.
And I've been thinking about the Denver Nuggets here for a little bit. Jamal Murray's gonna have to carry a torch during this program. Like I know it's the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air looking around and no furniture around, but hey, he's gonna have to figure it out. What I will say that helps Denver is the return of this version of Aaron Gordon. And I very specifically mean this version of Aaron Gordon. And I know you might have a twinge of concern that he may do too much, but it was good early and they need it now.
Have you had a chance to kind of unpack all of it?
Yeah, I don't know that I have yet. I think it's just another reminder of how wild pro football can be. I've lived it so many times. I mean, I think going back a little over 2 years ago when I tore my Achilles to now, there's been a lot of curveballs and a lot of change. And I was told a long time ago in pro football, you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I'm reminded of that time and again.
How long do you feel like that window is with Lamar, though?
I think you can get 2 more years of Lamar as a locked-in top 5 guy. And then I think after that is when it's like, okay, maybe he ages to more being a top 12 guy, which is still good. Maybe more of a tier 2 guy in my brain. And then it kind of ages from there. Russ went from like a tier 2 guy that fell off to a tier 3, tier 4 guy. You're going to have that drop off at some point in your career.
Derek Carr could unretire for the, quote, right situation and coaching staff per Ian Rappaport. Carr, 34, retired last May due to a tear in his shoulder and damage to his rotator cuff. Should be noted the Saints still hold Carr's rights. So anybody that would want to acquire Derek Carr would have to talk first to the New Orleans Saints. But Caroline, in fairness, we've talked a lot about this already over the last week. The free agent class at the quarterback position is dreadful in the NFL this year. Malik Willis, widely considered the best of the bunch. After that, maybe Kirk Cousins. You're talking about a 34-year-old Derek Carr. If he's healthy and wants to come back, there certainly could be several years left of him being able to play at a high level. This is not a 40-year-old Derek Carr. This is 34-year-old Derek Carr. So I could see teams starting to poke around and figure out what this looks like.
This feels like the perfect offseason for a quarterback like a Kirk Cousins, like a Derek Carr, to want to make a comeback. Does anybody view Derek Carr as the missing piece for a Super Bowl run? I don't think so, especially coming off of the shoulder injury. But Derek Carr is probably looking around the league and looking at how many teams could use at least a short-term option at the quarterback position, or, a one-year option at the quarterback position, and say, yeah, that's something that would be worth it for me. I look at a team like Minnesota. Would Minnesota kick the tires on bringing in Derek Carr to quote-unquote compete with J.J. McCarthy? I don't see any problem with that whatsoever. Would a team like the Steelers, what's Aaron Rodgers' future look like? Does Aaron Rodgers want to, one, come back to the NFL? Does Aaron Rodgers want to come back to the Steelers? We know that he and Mike McCarthy's relationship in the past hasn't been the best. They do have a history. So would Aaron Rodgers want to come back to Pittsburgh? If not, Derek Carr feels like the perfect option, at least short term, to bring in and win you enough games and, go 9-8 and make the playoffs, lose in the first round of play, do the Pittsburgh Steelers thing. And I know Steelers fans are screaming through their screen at me for even bringing up that option. I think about the Colts. The Colts, I would probably want to, I would guess, sign Daniel Jones long term, but Daniel Jones is not going to play in the 2026 season. He's dealing with that injury that he suffered midway through the season. So would they want to bring in a Derek Carr as a 1-year stopgap option, come in, win us enough games to maintain relevancy in a fairly wide open division, and then Daniel Jones comes back in year 2 of that new deal? All of those scenarios make sense to me, at least from the team side of things. But what does Derek Carr want? I don't think Derek Carr wants to come back out of retirement to come to a crap team and go 3-14, and then he goes into, into the rest of his retirement after a really brutal and difficult and long season. I'm sure Derek Carr wants to go somewhere where he can win. But teams that feel like they're in a window to win right now, are they in a position to sign a 34-year-old Derek Carr coming off of a pretty brutal shoulder injury?
One thing he did say on the podcast with his brother earlier this season when he talked about the fact that the Bengals and maybe other teams had reached out is that he would want, if he was going to come back, he'd want to play somewhere where there was an opportunity to win, and he would want to play somewhere where he wasn't a stopgap situation. He made it clear that he wasn't interested in the Bengals because he's not going to go somewhere where he's just a guy for a little bit. Like if he goes somewhere, he wants to be the guy again. So to me, now we start eliminating teams like the Colts because I think they're going to re-sign Daniel Jones, right? Like we start eliminating anyone where, like you say, stopgap 1 year. I don't think he's interested in that. So the question is the team going to look at Derek Carr and decide that he's their franchise quarterback for the next 3 years? He doesn't want to go somewhere and compete, at least from what he said on his own podcast earlier this year. He wants to go somewhere where the organization is making him the guy that they commit to, and that organization is on the precipice of winning. That maybe says Pittsburgh. If we believe that Pittsburgh is on the precipice of winning, like maybe says Pittsburgh, but to me that eliminates the Colts and the Vikings and several other teams across the league. It will be interesting to see. He quickly becomes a name that everybody's going to poke around with, but let's see what it actually means for Derek Carr playing in the NFL somewhere this coming season. There will certainly be opportunity where he's an upgrade. Will that opportunity fit what he wants in life? Time will tell. More to come on Derek Carr over the course of the week. Let's get back to the Super Bowl. Speaking of quarterbacks, we just watched Sam Darnold. There's a reclamation project. Not that Derek Carr's full reclamation, but we watched the full circle moment where where Sam Darnold sort of completes the circle, right? He goes in, he wins the Super Bowl, from seeing ghosts to getting that Super Bowl. So even though he gets the Super Bowl, though, even Sam Darnold admitted he didn't have his best stuff, right? Like Sam Darnold had a lot of throws in this game. Like he had Jackson Smith and Jigba early on what would have been a 90-yard touchdown. Misses that throw. Tough throw, but missed it. He misses JSN at the end of the first half, and a pass that Christian Gonzalez almost intercepts because he didn't put it in the right place. In the fourth quarter, he misses another long pass. I think it was to Shaheed. He missed 3 passes that were touchdowns in this game. So even though Sam Darnold wins, and he goes to, you see the numbers there, did it change the way that we see Sam Darnold forever, that he is now a Super Bowl champion?
I think it changes the way that we view quarterbacks, because what a testimony to resilience. And there are so many stories of quarterbacks that get drafted highly, are expected to be the savior, aren't the savior, and then just write out the rest of their careers into oblivion. I think that Zach Wilson is probably a good example of that I don't view Zach Wilson as a starting quarterback anywhere in the National Football League, but that's how we viewed Sam Darnold. That Sam Darnold was shipped off to Carolina, had a brutal tenure in Carolina, and then after that, we just kind of thought, Sam Darnold backup, career backup. And then he had his year in Minnesota, but even Minnesota was like, yeah, no, thanks, 14-3 season, but we're good. And now Sam Darnold's a Super Bowl champion. We are so quick to write off quarterbacks in this league. And now we find ourselves in a position, like we just talked about with Derek Carr, that there are so many quarterback-needy teams out there that would love their own version of a Sam Darnold, a guy that can come in and can win you enough football games as long as you put the right pieces around him. So no, Sam Darnold didn't have a great night last night. There was nothing that the Seahawks did offensively last night that said, yeah, that's a Super Bowl winning performance. But what spoke more volumes to me about where Sam Darnold is in his career right now, what spoke more volumes to me about Sam Darnold's career renaissance was the NFC Championship game, which I think we all kind of viewed as the real Super Bowl, the real two best teams in the league, Rams, Seattle, defensive juggernaut versus offensive, superpower. Sam Darnold went toe-to-toe with the league MVP in Matthew Stafford and won. Sam Darnold threw for over 300 yards, didn't throw a pick, didn't put the ball in danger, didn't turn the ball over, and was able to go pound for pound, shot for shot, score for score against the most well-coached offensive football team in the National Football League, against the league MVP playing the best football of his career. And he won. That, to me, was more of a testament to who Sam Darnold is as a quarterback in his career right now than we saw last night. Like, I want to give credit to the New England Patriots defense because they did make life really difficult on Sam Darnold. There were several missed throws that you just mentioned there that may not have been missed throws if Christian Gonzalez wasn't just an absolute monster. But he was and is an absolute monster. So I think we have to look at what Sam Darnold has done. Tip our cap to the warm, fuzzy Disney Channel story of reclamation and triumph, and acknowledge that Sam Darnold isn't an elite quarterback in this league. He's not a Patrick Mahomes. He's not a Josh Allen. He's not a Lamar Jackson. He's not a Joe Burrow. But what he was able to do was enough to get the Seattle Seahawks in this position.
You mentioned he's not a Lamar Jackson. He's not a Josh Allen. Those are guys that were drafted in the same draft class as he was. A reminder, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, all part of the 2018 draft. None of them won a Super Bowl before Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was the third overall pick in the draft for a reason. Now, the Jets, stop me if you've heard this before, the Jets picked somebody and they didn't develop them the right way. Oh, shocking. The fact that 5 teams, he becomes the first quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl that has played for 5 or more teams. The fact that 4 other teams had their hands on Sam Darnold, let him walk out the door, just shows you that so much of it is right fit, right place, right time, all of these things together, right coach, right system. All of these things matter with the quarterback. But to me, I'm excited to see what this opens up for Sam Darnold because I do believe that there's a freedom that comes with knowing that you have gotten the monkey off your back, right? Steve Young, all the way back in the day, there's a very famous clip of Steve Young winning his first Super Bowl, and he literally is saying on the sidelines, finally got the monkey off his back, of following in the footsteps of Joe Montana. And then it felt like that was like the awakening moment for Steve Young where it got even better. I wonder what everything looks like going into next season for Sam Darnold, who no longer has to worry about constantly hearing about or even feeling the pressure of disappointment that people seem to assign with his name. At this point, he's a Super Bowl champion. And he's a Super Bowl champion. No, it wasn't his cleanest game. I've been critical of his game already, but let's also acknowledge 0 turnovers. As I said earlier, Seattle becomes the first team ever to win a Super Bowl with 0 turnovers in the playoffs. Total. So when you talk about the fact that he didn't have that kind of regular season, I mean, certainly during the regular season, there were times that he was reckless with the football. In the Super Bowl, you could see early on, I thought a couple of his throws were a little dangerous. He was testing tight windows, and I thought, wow, this could be a cautionary tale as the game went on. Sam got smart. He played the right game for the way the game was coming to him. I feel like at this point, you're right. Is Sam in the same category as Lamar or Josh as an overall quarterback? My God, no. But Sam has something they don't, a Super Bowl. And that's going to require new context for the entire draft class conversation. Because now, every time we talk about the fact that Josh Allen doesn't have a Super Bowl, Lamar Jackson doesn't have a Super Bowl, Joe Burrow doesn't have a Super Bowl, we've been able to say for years, yeah, but Mahomes, it's Mahomes. Well, now Sam Darnold has one. So when we have these legacy conversations about Super Bowls and what they mean for quarterbacks, if that is a true leaning point in the legacy, now all of a sudden, when we're having the conversation at the bar, what seat belongs to Joe Burrow, what seat belongs to Lamar, and what seat belongs to Josh, Sam Darnold can walk up to the bar, set down his Lombardi trophy, and say, hey, guys, where's my seat? You're right. He's not the same. We all know that he's not in the same tier as an athlete or as an overall quarterback as those guys are. But he's got something that they may never touch. That's a Lombardi. And that will change the way that he's seen around the league. It'll change the way he's marketed around the league. It'll change the way people talk about him. And that could open up a whole new chapter for Sam Darnold, who, again, is 28 years old, Caroline. He's got a ton of football left to play. this could be his first Super Bowl ring, especially on that team, especially with that defense, especially the way that they play.
Especially on a team with so many young, dominant pieces with a young coach that isn't going anywhere. And you bring up how we view Sam Darnold, and I do think it's fair, but never, at least not right now, will we view Sam Darnold in that elite tier. But what I think it does do, Fitz, is change our perspective of how we view quarterbacks. For so long, it was you're constantly trying to fish for that your own Patrick Mahomes, your version of Joe Burrow, your version of Josh Allen. It's what the Jets keep doing. They keep drafting quarterbacks high in the draft and saying, fix us, please. When I think Sam Darnold is a tale of what can we do for you? Help us help you. Help you help us. So much more of a complementary football of building your football team. Because for so long, we just discarded quarterbacks that didn't have immediate return on investment. Baker Mayfield is a great example of that as well. Wasn't immediate return on your investment, so you just cast him away. He goes through a couple of years of being a backup. You go to the Sean McVay or the Kyle Shanahan school of rehabilitation for quarterbacks, and then they turn into franchise quarterbacks. It's a testament to patience. It's a testament to the right place, the right time. It's a testament to coaching. It's a testament to how you can build a Super Bowl champion when you don't have Patrick Mahomes, because they don't grow on trees.
Yeah, this will be interesting to see how the league copycats this, because this is an era. Speaking of copycats, we love to talk about Super Bowl champions. We love to talk about particular people that get credit. That man, you might not even know who he is. We'll tell you, because you need to know his name and why he matters so much to Seattle's future.
Penn State has imported Iowa State. It's the best way I could explain it. Penn State has now taken Rocco Beck. They took RB1. They took wide receiver 1. They took 3 offensive linemen. I detest that this is how college football works at the moment, but it's the way it works at the moment. And that is, when you take a head coach, part of the thinking behind hiring the head coach is who he can bring with him. And in Matt Campbell's case, it was basically whoever he wants.
I'm very fascinated to see which direction they go here, because I think that Roman, this is the deal with him. He's not terrible. He's not offensive as an offensive coordinator, but he can get you to a certain point. You need somebody else to get you to the next point. I think he's done a good job with Herbert, getting him to run more and getting him to push the ball down the field. Now I'd like to see, someone kind of just, again, give him some more quicker options. That's the type of stuff I'd like to see from the next coach.
Tom Aspinall, Cyril Gahn, that needs to be resolved, right? Hamzat Shemaiah versus Sean Strickland. But I will accept Hamzat Shemaiah versus Fluffy Hernandez. If Fluffy beats Sean Strickland, I'll take either of those. Here's another one of my, but you accept these as secondary.
100%.
Armin Sarukian versus UFC lightweight champion. We cannot just keep having Armin doing grappling matches and eating and all this stuff. He
I'm
must
kind of okay
fight
with
for
it.
No, I'm not. I know you love it.
You get the first pick in the underrated player draft. Who are you taking?
Jalen Duren has never made an All-Star game. He's never made an All-NBA team. He's gotten so much better as a scorer this year. Jalen Duren is like a legit All-Star this year. And so because everybody talks about the Detroit situation like it's trash and Cade Cunningham, I'm going to say he's still a little bit underrated, and he's my number 1 pick.
College basketball news over the weekend. Obviously, we had a massive rivalry matchup. North Carolina beats Duke. And then afterwards, court storming. John Schneider addressed it in his press conference afterwards as he said, I got staff members. They got punched in the face. That's not what this game is about. Frankly, there were also local restaurants that were then offering free food for life for whoever could prove that they delivered the punch. That's where we are, Caroline. We're at a spot now where, yet again, we're talking about court storming in college basketball. It's a phenomenon I will never understand. It is to me, and this is where everybody says I'm the fun police. No, I'm just worst case scenario guy. I've gone to games at college basketball arenas repeatedly. The security checks are a joke, and it takes one person that's not right that bring something in with them that nobody knows they have with them. Shiv. And then all of a sudden, we're not talking about a punch. We're talking about somebody getting seriously hurt, at which point everybody will say, how did we not stop this years ago? Court storming is dangerous, and somebody at some point is going to get hurt. We shouldn't have to wait for that inevitability to happen to stop it. I am a full believer that if you storm the court, your game should be forfeited. It should be turned into a loss. Let's stop it before anybody. And I don't really care if it ruins your fun. If the way that you have fun is putting every athlete in danger by storming the court of the field, then that's on you, dude. Like, at the end of the day, protect the people that are there playing the game that they are supposed to be playing. Let them get off the court, and then you can storm away. Hold everybody until they all leave the court, storm away. But if you step on that court too early, the win becomes a loss. That would stop it in its heels. I think college basketball, college football should all do it.
What a game. I mean, Seth Trimble gets the ball, final second of the game, hits a 3 to beat your bitter rival. Like, those are the kind of things when you're playing basketball as a kid. Like, those are the kind of scenarios that you put yourself into. North Carolina, big-time underdogs, probably really had, was no business really to be in that game with Duke the way that it was going early. North Carolina storms back in the second half. They find a way to win. That's the story that we should be talking about, right? This is the best rivalry in college basketball. Duke, North Carolina. This is how legends are made. But we're talking about court storming. And I remember a time when field storming and court storming was reserved for games like this. When you're an underdog against your bitter rival and you have this massive comeback and it's a last-second 3 to win the game. Like, that's what court storming is reserved for. But I feel like over the last several years, whether it's the social media-fication of it all, it was like, well, you win a game where you were a 2-point underdog, and all of a sudden you're going to storm the court, you're going to storm the field. And now it just feels a little bit too much, a little bit superfluous, and it's always those that ruin the fun for everybody. I stormed the field when I was a student at LSU. It was awesome. It was epic. It will go down as one of my favorite memories as being a student in college. But that was also at a time when you didn't do it very often. That was also a time when that was the only time that ever happened in my 4 years at LSU. And nobody woke up the next morning talking about how dangerous it was or how terrible it was or how we need to stop this, because it didn't happen very often. And then you get the field stormings, the court stormings that happen 3 or 4 or 5 times a year, and players get fed up with it. Coaches get fed up with it. We have students that are putting their phones in the losing players' faces and mocking them and taunting them and putting themselves in dangerous situations. And it's like, okay, well, we have to stop this at some point. So I hate that, these comments are what is overshadowing what was an insane win for North Carolina, an awesome game, an all-timer of a game. We're talking about court storming. And to your point, it is dangerous. I don't want someone to, knock on wood, lose their life for everyone to wake up to how dangerous this is. It's just gotten to a point where, we can't put the toothpaste back into the tube. So we're just going to have to ruin the fun for everybody and stop it totally and completely. I hate that. And I hate that the actual basketball game is getting overshadowed by the actions of a few dumb people.
I always go back to April 30th, 1993. I am old enough to remember that is the day that Monica Seles, the number 1 women's tennis player in the world, was attacked on the court by a fan with a knife, and she was stabbed, right? So I have seen this in my lifetime. Now you have 18,000 people running onto a court, and you're trusting that none of them are going to do what we've already seen happen in history to an athlete. I'm out on it. And for everybody that says I'm the fun police, I will remind you there was a time in our lives where we were able just to walk up to a gate and board an airplane. We don't get to do that anymore because tragedy is what causes change. I don't want to see tragedy. I just want to see change. All right, let's get back to the Super Bowl, as we have absolutely incredible Super Bowl win for Seattle, but some love to give to somebody that maybe everybody's not thinking about right now, because certainly when you talk about the Seahawks, I don't think you can have this conversation without talking about John Schneider, their GM, right? The Seahawks spend more money on their special teams than any other team in the NFL. $9.325 million in salary. By the way, their kicker and their punter were incredible. This is the way they built this team Schneider is somebody that, frankly, we saw make the Rashid Shaheed trade this season. Like, that was a huge, impactful moment. He's the person that saw Sam Darnold, like, they organizationally. We talk about Howie Roseman all the time and the great things that he's done for the Eagles. I think this Super Bowl forces us to have a Howard Roseman-like conversation about John Schneider, the GM, who is absolutely cooking with Seattle right now.
Special teams win championships. That's the perfect example is the Seattle Seahawks, not just what they did last night, but what they've been doing all season long. Let's go back to the divisional round of the playoffs. Rashid Shaheed takes the opening kickoff to the house, and that was really it. Like, that was really all she wrote. There was no time off the clock, and I was like, okay, that's it, done. Seattle won this game. Last night, Jason Myers, their kicker, was 5-4-5, and in a game where in the first 3 quarters, things kind of got weird in the fourth quarter, but in the first 3 quarters, points were of the essence. That I thought, if Seattle wants to kick it in every questionable situation, that's fine, because I didn't see a world where the Patriots could come back from a 9-0 deficit. Obviously, I know the fourth quarter happened. I know things changed, but that's how the feeling of the game was kind of going. But Jason Myers could have been MVP, and you wouldn't have heard a qualm out of me. Michael Dixon, their punter last night, landed 3 punts inside the 20. When you have a defense playing as stifling as the Seahawks defense was, when you had Drake Maye looking as flustered as he looked last night, you pin their offense inside of the 20, that's all I need to see. That as long as you are consistently getting field goal after field goal, you're pinning them inside of the 20, you're holding them to 3 and outs, that's a recipe for success. Was it the most exciting football game in the world? No. Is that going to be a brand of football that sells tickets where people are, just salivating at the mouth watching that brand of football? No, not necessarily. Doesn't need to be. Selling tickets doesn't win football games. You know what does? What we saw last night. So, to your point, yes, credit to the roster construction of that team, because it wasn't just the traditional formula of find and draft, be bad enough to draft an elite quarterback and make that your path to success, the Cincinnati path to success, the Buffalo path to success. It's let's find a guy who we can trust. Let's put as much talent around him, and let's play complementary football in all 3 phases, and we'll win a Super Bowl from it. That's exactly what the Seahawks did this year. That's what the Philadelphia Eagles did last year as well.
Well, and Schneider, I mean, think about it. He goes from Pete Carroll to Mike Macdonald, right? Like, we talk a lot about successful organizations' ability to replace coaches when they need to. And I think about that. We had the tweet up earlier. Schneider's ability to win a Super Bowl now for a second time with a completely different coaching staff and a completely different roster is unprecedented. It's the first time ever that we've seen multiple Super Bowls, same organization, different head coach, and no players on the roster. So what's that tell you? They went through an era where they realized it wasn't good enough. They ripped it apart and they rebuilt it. It takes courage, as we've talked a lot about, when knowing the right time to change coaches. It takes courage to walk away from a coach that's won a bunch of football games and a quarterback that's won some football games for you. And they were questioned about all of that. It takes courage to look at it and say, hey, I know Minnesota's letting Sam Darnold walk out the door, but that doesn't matter to us. We're going to bring him in. All of these things take some level of guts to see this puzzle, and I know exactly how to piece it together. So to be here in year 2 of a regime, too, this is so early in this Mike Macdonald era for the Seahawks. I just feel like Howie Roseman, rightfully so, gets so much conversation for drafting, right? And then I watched that Seattle defense last night. We've talked about how young this team is. Howie Roseman gets so much credit for the ability to identify weapons. Well, JSN and Kenneth Walker III, these aren't free agent acquisitions. These are homegrown guys that are being drafted and developed. When you look at the way they draft, and then when you look at the augmented pieces that they brought in to help them, and then you have to give credit to somebody, I just feel like, Caroline, for all the credit we're giving Mike Macdonald, for all the credit, rightfully so, we're going to give special teams and kickers and all of these things. At the end of the day, right now I'm looking at it and saying, second straight year, we see the GM that plays the chess game better than everybody is the GM left. Like, Shaheed was a huge acquisition at the draft, or at the deadline, I should say, that absolutely changed the fortunes of this team. Not everybody can say they made that trade, but everybody can say they could have made that trade. Schneider found a way to get it done, and it changes the way their entire season plays out. Like, this is front office of the year. This is epic front office work by John Schneider.
We talk a lot about Howie Roseman and not just drafting, but the trades that he can make, that the AJ Brown trade felt like an epic fleecing from the Tennessee Titans. I go back to the Russell Wilson trade. The Seahawks got a first and second in the 2023 draft. You know who John Schneider drafted with those picks? Devin Witherspoon with the first round pick and Derek Hall with the second round pick. 3 combined sacks from those 2 guys last night. 2 guys that I mentioned could have been in contention for Super Bowl MVP. That is expert GMing. You bring up Rashid Shaheed. I said at the time at the trade deadline, if I can maybe do a little bit of a victory walk here, I said I think Rashid Shaheed might end up being one of the most underrated acquisitions at the trade deadline. Not the Sauce Gardners, not the Quinnen Williams, which dominated our conversations at that time, rightfully so. But I thought Rashid Shaheed isn't an overly sexy acquisition, but I think he's going to be a spark plug addition for the Seattle offense. And it was. And they didn't have to give up too much in order to get him. Moving on from Geno Smith. A lot of GMs may have said, look, Geno Smith is fine. We can work with Geno. You can do a whole lot worse than Geno Smith. I stand by that. I think you can do a whole lot worse than Geno Smith and what he brought to the Seattle Seahawks, winning comeback player of the year. But they decided to move on from Geno Smith. They decided to take a swing on Sam Darnold when the Minnesota Vikings said, yeah, no, 14-3, thanks, but no thanks, we're good on that. Making some maybe unpopular moves or moves that felt risky at the time, or maybe even moves that didn't even feel overly sexy or overly impactful, all came to fruition to be the perfect mixture of ingredients to building a championship contender.
With a ton of money left to spend that they can use to keep these young guys on their roster for a very long time. Things look great in Seattle. More Super Bowl breakdown to come. But coming up next, we had a massive week in the NBA. We need to get caught up on what it all means. Kenyon Martin, friend of the show, joins us next.
At the very top of my list, we need finality to Aspinall versus Gunn.
Yeah.
We need finality to this.
Have to.
I just want to see this fight play out because guess what? It was a very entertaining fight and it was playing out in a way that I think a lot of people didn't think it would play out. So I need to see that fight. I have to see that fight. The division needs to see that fight. They both need to see that fight. They both earned it and deserved it, and we can't move on without that fight.
Do the Spurs still take Dylan Harper over Con Knippel and VJ Edgecombe?
I think for me, if I was to do it all over again, I would still take the best pick available, and that is Dylan Harper. I mean, you see he just is such an elite creator.
Prior to the draft, Mo, I was pretty consistent in saying that I would trade down and take a Con Knippel. Con at 4, I still think would have been the best possible outcome for San Antonio, and I feel that way even more strongly at this point.
All football teams are dams. Some of them have a ton of cracks. Some of them have a few cracks. It's all about who faces enough water pressure from their schedule to expose the cracks. Most of the time when you're playing in the Big Ten or the SEC, you're going to face several tests that will expose your cracks. I don't think Ohio State did this year. They faced Texas early in the year, and they just never faced enough pressure to expose the cracks.
Did you notice that the scoring totals had fallen in the new year, that the New Year's resolution apparently was to bring physicality back?
A couple of years ago when it was all of a sudden everybody scored 50, 60, 70. And then like the air went out of the ball for a month. And it was like in the middle of the season, the way the rules were being called kind of changed and scoring started to drop.
Look, to be fair, Dan, it could be, hey, everyone just magically figured out how to play legal defense.
The participants are confirmed for the 2026 NBA All-Star Dunk Contest. You see the names there. And we're going to get right into it with one of the experts. He spent 15 years in the NBA, first overall pick of the 2000 NBA draft, kind enough to spend a few minutes with us right now. Kenyon Martin. Kenyon, appreciate that. You see the names. Is there anything in your mind that can be done that can make the dunk contest like just resonate?
Man, I think we all are in locker. First of all, thanks for having me, guys. We all in these locker rooms, right? And we all know who's the athletic guy on the team. I think each team should submit a guy, their most athletic dunker, submit one and go from that field. You know, then you pick 4 or 5 guys from that field. I think it's make a team make it mandatory for them to submit a guy. And I think that way the dunk contest would be a lot better. Without having the stars in it, you get the best dunkers in the league like it used to be with the Zach LaVines and Aaron Gordons, and when those guys were in it, when Vince did it, and though could play, but their athleticism stood out, and they wanted to put it on display. And I think a lot of young guys would do that. That's why I think you see Carter Bryant and Jason Richardson in it as well. So I think that's why.
That the replies to that tweet were all like, "Who? Never heard of him before." Not the case though for the 3-point contest. We see Damian Lillard coming back and competing despite rehabbing his Achilles. We see Con Knippel competing, one of the betting favorites to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Devin Booker, Tyrese Maxey, Donovan Mitchell. I mean, it is a who's who is competing in the 3-point contest. Who do you see coming out of this field?
I'm going Dame. I'm going Dame. Fresh legs, hell of a shooter. I'm pretty sure all he has been doing is a lot more shooting. So yeah, I'm going with Dame, man. Yeah, I'm going Dame.
I
as
love
the favorite.
You're so right. There's just an absolute beast of that. Fresh legs is a big point of this. Also, he'd be joining Larry Bird and Craig Hodges. I'm old enough to remember when Craig Hodges dominated this thing. Come on.
Yes.
Craig Hodges was a beast in the 3-point contest, Kenyon. We all know.
Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? So I think Dame being in it, man, I think gives the fans something to look forward to for him. I think it's exciting. I think the field is exciting. If I had to pick a dark horse in this, it will be Devin Booker. Just look at the guys that shoot it effortlessly. And Tyrese Maxey, it takes a lot for him to get it off. Donovan Mitchell can get it going, but I think it's more in the game setting. But so if I have to pick one, then a runner-up, I'm gonna go Dame and D-Book. Go with the old heads.
All right, so from looking forward, let's look back. Last week we had a mega trade in the eyes of many. Harden shipped out of L.A. to Cleveland. Now that we've had a few days to let it settle, how do you like that for both sides?
Going into it, man, we were talking about it on the Gills Arena show, man, and going into it, I didn't think that James would leave L.A., to be honest with you. Him being home, the twilight years of his career are here. I didn't think he would want to move again. And being that they were playing better, the Clippers were playing better as of late. I think 15-3 over the last 18 games before the trade, something of that nature. Very surprising. I think both sides got something that they wanted. Darius Garland is a younger PG in that regard, and James is trying to win. Him and Donovan are trying to win right now, and I think this puts James in the best situation being in the East right now because the West is always stacked. So I think James being in the East benefits him. But it's now or never. It's now or never for James. If he doesn't get it done here at this last stop, then I don't know what's next. Don't know if the trade rumors are true, him requesting the trade or asking to move, or was it a mutual decision? But I think this is the last go-round, man. If he doesn't get it done in this stop, look, don't know what's next.
You bring up how wide open the East is. Now, Cleveland right now standing fourth in the Eastern Conference standings behind the Pistons, the Knicks, and the Celtics. If you ranked those four teams, Pistons, Knicks, Celtics, and Cavs, in terms of your confidence level to come out of the East and find themselves in the NBA Finals, how would you rank those four?
Well, as of now, experience, I'm going to go with the Knicks first. Detroit hungriness second, Boston third, and Cleveland fourth right now. So I'm gonna leave it, yeah. So I'm gonna go Detroit. If the Knicks don't get it done this year, then it's the same thing I feel with James Harden as well. If they don't get it done this year, then that window is closing. So you fired your coach last year, which was a interesting move. Bringing in Mike Brown, so we'll see how this goes. But right now, I'm going to pick the Knicks as the favorite because of their experience and things that they've been through as of late. But I'm not going to count out Detroit.
I mean, it's obvious you trade for James Harden. You're capitalizing on the right now. Like, you're okay with shutting that 5 to 7 year window and capitalizing on the next 1 to 2 year window that you have right now. But if you were still putting the Cavs fourth in the hierarchy of the East, how much better did they get with the James Harden trade?
Personally, I don't think they got better. I think it was just moving furniture around. Just to be honest, the numbers are what they are, but I'm big on the chemistry that those guys have built over the last 2 or 3 years. You know, with Donovan and Darius and Evan Mobley and those guys. I just think the chemistry that they've built over the last few years meant something. But what do I know?
Well, I mean, look, come on, you know more basketball than most of the world, right? But like, so I'm going to make you the GM of talking about teams that are trying to improve. I'm going to make you the GM of the Celtics then for a second, because we're all sitting here saying, should Tatum come back? Like, should he try and rush this thing? They're playing much better than all of us expected, but then you've got this piece over here in Tatum that is just such a difference maker. If you ran the Celtics, how would you be treating the comeback of Tatum?
This was a heated debate on the show the other day with me and a few of the fellas, myself, Rashad, Nick Young, Brandon Jennings. They were under the impression that Jason Tatum should come back. I don't think Brad Stevens and Joe Mazzulla, I don't think they should rush it. I don't think Jason Tatum should rush it. It's not like it's a meniscus or something of that nature. This is an Achilles. And I think the more rest that he could possibly get coming into next year would benefit him. Him coming back now probably would benefit the team. But if we're talking about the person, I think him waiting it out and being fresh and not trying to rush it back now for the playoffs. If you come back, he's not practicing 5-on-5. He hasn't played any games. We are in the middle of February. Was to come back, it'll be after All-Star break, March. It's rushed. It's rushed, and I don't see the need. The team is playing well right now. You're in third with what you have. You just added Vucevic to the mix. I think is going to help. So I think that move there with the trade allows them to reevaluate it even more. Jason Tatum's injury, but it's a serious injury. I just don't see the need to rush back and trying to rev it up for the playoffs, because we all know that the playoffs are much more intense than the regular season. And it's risk for further injury to something else. Not the same injury. I just see something else possibly happen, a hamstring or other calf, because you're overcompensating, you're worried about this injury, and you're not. So, yeah, I just think it's a lot for him. But whatever decision he makes, I'm pretty sure it'll be the best for him and the Celtics. But if I'm the GM, if I'm Brad Stevens, I'm not rushing Jason Tatum back.
I'm with you. I mean, he's a certified superstar. He would make you better, but also, do you want to risk another injury that leaves him out even longer and into next season? Risk is too much for me. But another certified superstar in this league that we talked a lot about going into the trade deadline, but will stay put, that's Giannis Antetokounmpo. There are a lot of Golden State rumors kind of floating around there. So what do you see Giannis's future being, and where do you want to see him playing?
Future in Milwaukee is there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but it's a train coming. So there in Milwaukee with Giannis, I just think it's too far gone. You're on your third coach in 3 years, winning. He hasn't been healthy in the playoffs. I don't think the roster is built to compete right now. They haven't put the right pieces around Giannis in order to compete. I see a move happening, and the Golden State thing, I don't know. Him and Steph would be great together, of course. A bigger market, I'm thinking I can see Giannis in Miami. He can get other guys to join there. You got him, Norman Powell, a few guys. So I can see Giannis in Miami. Big market. I think Pat wants to win still. Eric Spoelstra still wants to win. And I think he can help that situation a lot. But I definitely see him going to a big market.
So let's talk about the opposite of wanting to win, because we saw this over the weekend. The Jazz last week, big at the trade deadline, right? They go out, they get Jaren Jackson Jr. We all love that. They go into a Saturday night game where they are like they're cooking. Marketing and Triple J are cooking going into the fourth quarter. And then all of a sudden, they don't play a single minute in the fourth quarter. What was a lead turns into a loss. Now we're all talking about tanking. As a player that gave so much of this game, how do you fix the tanking problem in the NBA?
Man, it's disgusting. It is a disgusting display of non-competitive natured organizations. I think it's awful for the game. I think it's awful for sports. Something has to be done, man. It's when you're making it blatantly obvious like that, the league has to step in, man. It has to be a draft pick, some fines, something has to give. Yeah, because it's no good for the fans, man. Like if anybody is cheated, it's the fans in these situations, especially this situation. These people paying their hard-earned money to come out and see these guys play and cheer them on and root for them night in, night out, and you go out and do things like that. And there's no, so this is my thing with it as well. There is no guarantees on the other side of it. You can do all this and come out and get the 7th pick. Then what? It's disgusting. So it's not like football where if you finish with the worst record, you're going to get the 1st pick. And you're going to get the 2nd pick. You're going to get the 3rd pick. It's not that. So for you to do this with unless they have a certainty on the other side that they're going to so then those things start to come into question, like the integrity of the game, the integrity of the lottery process, all those things start coming into question, right? On the backside.
Do you believe, I mean, I got to get you on this, Kenny. Do you believe that the lottery is actually really a lottery?
It's hard to. At times when certain things have happened in the past, I think some years they just let it go as it may, and other years it feels as if the fix is in. So I honestly don't know. Like when I came out, I don't know if the Nets were slotted to get the number 1 pick. You know what I'm saying? So it's things like that. Did it just happen naturally, or did they fix it? So it's just I don't know, man, because it's things like this that make it question it. So. It's a hard answer. It's a tough conversation to have.
And I think the league is in a tough position where the integrity of the game, whether it be, the gambling scandals that we've seen, whether it been question marks with the lottery, there's a lot of questions about the integrity of the league. But I think a reason why a lot of these teams are trying to tank is because the top of this upcoming draft is absolutely stacked. So as a member of the number 1 overall pick club between AJ Dybantsa, Cam Boozer, Darren Peterson, all of these young and dynamic players likely coming out in the draft next year, who would you take number 1?
It all depends. It's just the old cliche thing is it all depends on who gets the pick. To be honest with you, the teams need. I think if Utah mess around, if Utah does get the 1st pick, then they need a wing, so they go AJ. If who else is a bad team? If Sacramento gets the 1st pick, they need a big, so they're going to go Boozer. So it just depends. It honestly really depends on where they fix this ball to go.
That's Kenyon, man, we appreciate your time. I appreciate the fact that you love the sport so much you're willing to talk open and honest about it. It means something to us that you spend time with us. So thank you so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate you, my friend.
No problem, man. Anytime, man. Thanks for having me again.
That's great
Thanks,
stuff
Kenyon.
from Kenyon Martin. Did not hold back, never does. That's what makes him a legend. All right, coming up, we're not going to hold back on that, man. We're handling Drake Maye with kick gloves. It's going to stop now.
One school that's doing some work in there right now, very quietly, is the Florida Gators. At the time of us taping this, Florida is sitting there with a top 10 class. And you're like, JD, wait a second. Florida's got a top 10 class? Who have they added? And I think this portal class in general for John Summerall is a good reflection of just the overall vibe, attitude, persona of what you're going to get from John Summerall during his time in Gainesville.
And I've been thinking about the Denver Nuggets here for a little bit. Jamal Murray's he's gonna have to carry the torch during this program. Like it's, I know it's the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air looking around and no furniture around, but hey, he's going to have to figure it out. What I will say that helps Denver is the return of this version of Aaron Gordon. And I very specifically mean this version of Aaron Gordon. And I know you might have a twinge of concern that he may do too much, but it was good early and they need it now.
Have you had a chance to kind of unpack all of it?
Yeah, I don't know that I have yet. I think it's just another reminder of how wild pro football can be. I've lived it so many times. I mean, I think going back a little over 2 years ago when I tore my Achilles to now, there's been a lot of curveballs and a lot of change. And I was told a long time ago in pro football, you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I'm reminded of that time and again.
How long do you feel like that window is with Lamar, though?
I think you can get 2 more years of Lamar as a locked-in top 5 guy. And then I think after that is when it's like, okay, maybe he ages to more being a top 12 guy, which is still good. Maybe more of a tier 2 guy in my brain. And then it kind of ages from there. Russ went from like a tier 2 guy that fell off to a tier 3, tier 4 guy. You're going to have that drop off at some point in your career.
Oh, hysterical meme describing what we saw in the Super Bowl, because to many it was a very ugly game. To me, it was beautiful defense. I don't know. I loved it. I'm going to be honest. I loved it, but certainly we had a defensive one for the ages. Carolina's, Seattle's defense was on display, but so was the Patriots. I mean, we've spent a lot of time talking about Seattle, praising Seattle. I do want to give the Patriots some love here. Their defense was absolutely it kept everybody in a blender. Christian Gonzalez, if the Patriots would have won, would have been the MVP in this game. I mean, his coverage was absolutely incredible. They put him on JSN for the entirety when JSN was in this game, and he shadowed him beautifully. This defense was absolutely making Sam Darnold adjust over and over and over again. I do want to say here that the Patriots defense, even in a 29-point, only 22 of those coming offensively, but in that 29-point production there, the Patriots defense was elite in this game that was very ugly.
And I do want to give credit to the Patriots defense because I've given them credit. We've given them credit, but maybe not all the credit in the world because we understood the teams they were playing on their path through the postseason. A Chargers team with no offensive line, a Texans team with a double agent at quarterback, and then with the Denver Broncos playing Jarrett Stidham rather than Bo Nix. There were several reasons why we could nitpick this Patriots defense of, was it really real? And then we see the Patriots defense playing lights out against a Seahawks team that was not dominant, but incredibly exciting, high-powered, high-flying, high-octane against a really good Rams defense. So credit to the Patriots defense for being able to hold the Seahawks in check. But also, Fitz, I watched that game last night, and several times I thought, are the Patriots really the best team out of the AFC? The Patriots really deserving of being here in the Super Bowl. And look, you win the games fair and square. You go through, the gauntlet that they went through, I guess, through the AFC, taking on that Texans defense, taking on the Broncos defense in the snow. Like, look, they got there fair and square. They won these games fair and square. But you look through the entirety of their season, they played a lot of really bad teams. They were fortunate to have a lighter schedule. Does that mean that they were undeserving? No, but the fact of the matter is, they had an easy schedule and an easier path than maybe some other teams in order to get there. The best win that the Patriots had all season was on the road at Buffalo. That's the only win that really stands out to me as they played a really good team on the road in a tough environment and they found a way to win. Other than that, there's nothing that I think this Patriots team could really hang their hat on. There was nothing that I could pinpoint as, okay, this is what this Patriots team does really well. This is what this Patriots team does better than any other team in the AFC. I don't want to take away a trip to the Super Bowl away from this Patriots fan base, away from this Patriots team, but you can't tell me that was the best team in the AFC.
What I don't understand, we see Drake Maye right there. Why is everybody handling this kid with kid gloves right now? I don't understand it. In fact, ESPN right now has a headline.
He played
Drake
poorly
Maye,
last
the Patriots could build a dynasty despite a loss. He played like trash through 3 quarters. And when we finished the third quarter, the Patriots had 7 punts. Drake Maye had 8 completions going into the fourth quarter. Now, yeah, he stacked up some yards in the fourth quarter. That's fine. But if you look at the EPA of a quarterback's play, the advanced analytics on this, over the course of the entire playoffs, you're talking about the worst we've ever seen from any starting quarterback in the playoff era, according to Next Gen Stats. Like Drake Maye throughout the entirety of the playoffs was awful. And we're saying, oh, he had an injection before the game in his shoulder. That people want to talk about these. These are all context clues, I guess. But I'm looking at a quarterback that was terrible in the entirety of the postseason. So I understand that Drake Maye was an MVP candidate during the regular season. I understand he's a second-year player that still has a lot of room to grow. I think those are all fair things. Drake Maye might turn out to be a really good quarterback. Drake Maye might also have feasted on lesser competition in a year that just was there for him, and turns out he might not be the second coming. Like, I don't think we really know yet, and it's okay to say that. But I've watched the coverage since the Super Bowl, and even in the game, the number of times in the game I heard, this young man is going to learn from this, bounce back, and be even better. Do we treat Lamar the same when he plays like trash in a playoff game? Will we treat every quarterback the same when they have when you have a terrible Super Bowl and your team loses, you usually get ripped. When you have a terrible playoff run and your team loses a Super Bowl, there's usually this moment where everybody steps back and says, man, I don't know. He's got to get a lot better. I feel like the opposite's happening with Drake Maye. We're blaming the offensive line. We're blaming the lack of weapons. We're blaming all these things. Drake Maye in this game had moments where he had wide open guys he could have hit, and he didn't. He got rattled when he got hit, which was a theme throughout the course of these playoffs. And you can talk about how often he got hit and how much that hurt him, fine. But at the end of the day, I don't know why we're trying to couch all that to make Drake Maye superhuman, when the fact is, I think after 2 years, what we have now is a body of work that shows us Drake Maye might be pretty good, but there's still room to grow, and we're not 100% sure. I don't think that's a hot take.
There's 2 reasons why I think everyone is propping up Drake Maye. One is because of the team that he plays for. Everyone wants so badly for Drake Maye and this Patriots team to be the next Tom Brady-esque dynasty. If Drake Maye played for the Washington Commanders, if Drake Maye played for the Chicago Bears, I don't think that we would be talking about him in that same light. It's just we expect the Patriots to be great. I think I think it's okay to acknowledge they had an easy schedule and an easy path in the postseason, and they're the beneficiaries of that. And I think that Bills Seahawks would have been a more engaging game. I think that Broncos Seahawks would have been a more engaging game. I think you can pick several teams in the AFC that would have given us a more entertaining Super Bowl. The second reason is because I think everyone loves Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel gets more benefit of the doubt of any other coach that I have ever seen in the National Football League. And part of this drives me crazy is because I witnessed firsthand Mike Vrabel being part of the reason why the Tennessee Titans have experienced an epic demise over the last several years. Does Mike Vrabel get a whole lot of credit for the Titans having the #1 overall seed and the AFC in the 2021 season? Yes, of course, absolutely. But also, I saw the Titans #1 seed in the AFC. They had a bye in the first round of the playoffs. They were hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. They sacked Joe Burrow 9 times, and they still found a way to lose. That Mike Vrabel wanted all of this power and all of this say in roster construction in Tennessee, and that is part of the reason why the Titans now find themselves in the absolute depths of the NFL. Mike Vrabel got more roster control in New England. And with the 4th overall pick, he selected Will Campbell, their left tackle, who got worked all game long last night. You see the helmet behind me. I love Will Campbell. That's my guy. He went to my alma mater. Thank you. But also, Will Campbell looked very much so like a rookie last night. A big reason why Drake Maye looked the way he looked last night, partly is because of Drake Maye, but also because he was under duress all game long. Even when there were some easy gimme throws, I think about that missed open shot to Kayshon Boutte right, maybe 5-10 yards downfield, and Drake Maye just missed him. It's because he was seeing ghosts, and it's because Will Campbell could not hold up on his side of the line. So there you go, Mike Vrabel, this awesome, amazing, genius Mike Vrabel finally gets the roster construction power that he wanted this entire time, and he drafts a left tackle that was the star of the show last night for the worst possible reasons. So I don't know why Mike Vrabel gets all of this benefit of the doubt. I don't know why everyone just trusts Mike Vrabel to the immense point that they do. I don't know why, but I think he is part of the reason why everyone's saying it's okay, Drake Maye. It's going to be okay. You're going to find yourself back there, where I don't really know if we will find this version, this iteration of this Patriots team back in the Super Bowl with a more difficult first place schedule next year. I don't see it.
I mean, to your point, I think Josh McDaniels has some blame in this for the way the game was called. I don't think they did a lot to help him. Drake Maye is partially responsible for some of these sacks. They even pointed out on the broadcast a couple of times. And again, they did it with, he'll learn from this, but he's got to know where the blitzer's coming so that he can shift the protection beforehand. He did not do that particularly well. His completion percentage in the playoffs was 58, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. His success rate on passes, which is an advanced metric, was down 20% versus regular season versus the playoffs. His yards per attempt just absolutely plummeted in the playoffs. What we saw against really good defenses is Drake Maye struggled over and over and over again. And yes, 21 sacks in the playoffs. That's just a gross number. You're right. Part of that's on Vrabel. Part of that, I think, is on Josh McDaniels in the play calling. Part of that is also on Drake Maye. Read and recognize. Matthew Stafford had tremendous success in the NFC Championship game against Seattle because he reads and recognizes. He's seen more. He understands more. He's been in the league a long time. He was able to see more of what was coming at him. Drake Maye didn't do that. So, yeah, it is absolutely in part on Will Gamble, who Rex Ryan this morning called T-Rex arm. So I understand this. So I get that there are plenty of people to blame. I just think that when we slice out this blame cake, there is going to be a piece of this blame cake that squarely does it, like you serve it up on a plate and you hand it to Drake Maye. Now, hopefully he's in year 2, Caroline. Hopefully, and I want Patriots fans to hear this. I don't root for or against their team. Hopefully he learns from this and he gets a better version of who he is. But I don't know. We got the comment in the chat. Do the Patriots win if Josh Dobbs starts? No. And the Patriots probably don't win if Josh Dobbs starts. But I do think that it's fair right now. I would argue that if Caleb had that same game in the Super Bowl, if Caleb had played the same way in the playoffs, we'd be asking a lot of questions about Caleb because people want to ask questions about Caleb. If Jaden Daniels had that same run in the playoffs, we would be asking a lot of questions about Jaden Daniels. I don't know why we're not asking them about Drake Maye, and I think we should. Drake Maye's got a lot more to prove before I'm going to put him in the same tier that just a few days ago some of the people at ESPN wanted to put him on with Josh and with Lamar. He ain't there. He ain't there. So
he's not
plenty of work to go. No, not even close. Not even. But it's also just year 2. He's ahead of schedule. It's just year 2. Speaking of schedules, we're going to get straight to the Olympic schedule coming up next, live from Italy. That's right. We're going to test the world of internet connection to see how we can do this. Nathan Chen going to join us to give us a breakdown of what we've seen from the quad guy.
Penn State has imported Iowa State. It's the best way I could explain it. Penn State has now taken Rocco Beck. They took RB1. They took wide receiver 1. They took 3 offensive linemen. I detest that this is how college football works at the moment, but it's the way it works at the moment. And that is when you take a head coach, part of the thinking behind hiring the head coach is who he can bring with him. And in Matt Campbell's case, it was basically whoever he wants.
I'm very fascinated to see which direction they go here because I think that Roman, this is the deal with him. He's not terrible. He's not offensive as an offensive coordinator, but he can get you to a certain point. You need somebody else to get you to the next point. I think he's done a good job with Herbert getting him to run more and getting him to push the ball down the field. Now I'd like to see, someone kind of just, again, give him some more quicker options. That's the type of stuff I'd like to see from the next coach.
Tom Aspinall, Cyril Gahn, that needs to be resolved, right? Hamzat Shemaiah versus Sean Strickland. But I will accept Hamzat Shemaiah versus Fluffy Hernandez. If Fluffy beats Sean Strickland, I'll take either of those. Here's another one of my, but you accept these as secondary.
100%.
Armin Sarukian versus UFC lightweight champion. We cannot just keep having Armin doing grappling matches and eating and all this stuff.
I'm kind of okay with it.
No, I'm not.
No.
I know you love it.
You get the first pick in the underrated player draft. Who are you taking?
Jalen Duren has never made an All-Star game. He's never made an All-NBA team. He's gotten so much better as a scorer this year. Jalen Duren is like a legit All-Star this year. And so because everybody talks about the Detroit situation like it's trash and Cade Cunningham, I'm going to say he's still a little bit underrated, and he's my number 1 pick.
The U.S. takes gold in the figure skating team event. The quad god free skate score of 200.03 clinches first place for the Americans. Nathan Chen going to join us now live from Milan. I can't believe this. We are testing the internet gods. Thanks for your time, man. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Okay, so how impressive was it for you with this? You've been around skating your whole life. You've been a champion, right? When you saw what the quad god did on Sunday, what stood out to you?
I mean, it was a great event. All men competed extremely well. I have to take note of Italy coming in and getting that 3rd spot as well. Matteo coming in, putting it clean. He'd been out for a period of time, so it was cool to be able to see him come in and throw down on really one of the biggest stage, or the biggest stage for him, frankly. Ilya came in. He had a slightly watered down program, I gotta say. So compared to what he's normally able to do, or what he normally does. But I think this was very strategic. I think he should have done what he did. Water down your program a little bit, make sure that you do what you need to do to get through this team event, and then focus on the individual from here.
I want to go back to what we just saw from that tweet at the beginning, a score of 200.03. For those of us who are not experts in the world of figure skating, kind of break that down into layman's terms for us. What does that score mean?
Totally. I mean, 200 is a big score. Anytime that you have a combined score over 300, you're in the top league. And so typically a short program above 100 is incredible. A 200 program above a 200 in the free program is incredible. He has the ability to go even above that, up to 220 plus. So we definitely will see a lot more coming in the individual event. As I mentioned, this is for him, crazy to say this, but it's a watered down program. And getting the score with that is a really great place to be. So, excited to see what's to come.
What's it mean for the entire team to just get a gold right out of the gate for momentum going into this thing and for sort of getting the beast off the back?
Totally. I mean, first of all, it's an incredible accomplishment no matter what. I'm so proud of this team, and this is a really, really strong team coming into the Olympics. So, hats off to the U.S. It's also great to have this team event to kind of get your feet under you, especially for men and ice dance that are coming up right away. The women will have to take some time off to sort of regroup, and they compete later in the competition as well as the pairs. But it's great to get a little familiar with Olympic ice. A lot of this is their Olympic debut for a lot of the athletes. So really, it's a great experience, great opportunity to kind of see what does it feel like to have the pressure of the Olympics and seeing the rings on the ice and all the cameras and all the people. It's a definitely a very different feeling experience. So great experience for them right now.
You mentioned there's a lot of skaters that are kind of new to this stage, but those who are not, as Madison Chalk and Evan Bates, not just husband and wife, but also gold medalists. They have 2 team golds after winning both ice dance segments. What did their experience bring to this rather inexperienced team?
Yeah, absolutely. I think their leadership is so vital for the team right now, or it was very apparently vital for the team, helping the athletes get through this. There's a lot of ups and downs. The event is long. It's over 3 days. So little things can change how the trajectory of the event goes. So having this veteran leadership help corral the skaters and keep them sort of the energy and motivation up. It's really important, and really looking forward to seeing what they're able to put down in the individual events. They are my best friends, and I'm really proud of them.
I mean, you're covering the Olympics, but you are an Olympic champion, right? So what's this moment like for you? Just watching it, you chose not to compete this time. Like, what's it feel like for you to be there, but not be there the same way you're used to?
For sure. I mean, honestly, I haven't really watched skating from the stands much in my life. So to do that now at the Olympics is really cool. It's cool. I mean, it's great. It's definitely a very different experience. I'm not stressed in the normal sense. But at the same time, I was thinking, as I was flying there, when I go to these events, I have a very clear objective. Here's like an algorithm that I'll follow to make sure that I'm primed for the events. Now I was flying on the plane. I was like, I'm just going to watch a movie and chill. So it's a very different experience, but it's a lot of fun.
Are you talking to your teammates? Are they asking you for advice since you are sort of a little bit in a different situation here to maybe help talk to them?
Look, I'm open to anything that people have to ask. But I do think that as skaters, everyone is a very unique individual in their trajectory and in their approach. So I certainly would never want to just enforce advice on people if that's not helpful. But anytime anyone wants to ask me, I'm always open for that.
You mentioned it. You've been a part of this team. You've been here on this stage before. You know what it's like being in the shoes, their skates. What stands out to you about this team, the way it's constructed, and maybe kind of their relationships with one another?
Yeah, I mean, we can tell that the women have been just tremendously supportive of one another. It's been really wholesome and heartwarming to see them go through Olympic trials, nationals for us, and into the Olympics. This team, I mean, we all sort of grow up together. We compete together. We know each other for a really long time. So it really is like a family. And I think having that at the Olympics, at least for me, was really important because I felt as though, no matter what happened on the ice, the support and love that we have for one another will remain. And to keep that through the event, I think it's something that's really valuable.
We see here on this tweet, Japan obviously upset. They win the silver, Italy the bronze. I mentioned the momentum USA gets from a gold. What's the impact for everybody else that maybe wanted that shot at the podium and now has to regroup and sort of refocus?
Yeah. I mean, I have to say Japan was absolutely incredible during the team event. Every single athlete just really did their job. They put down really across the board some of the best skating I've seen from Japan. So hats off to them for the work that they put in. And I don't think anyone should count out the results of the team event to be exactly what will happen in individual. Completely new day, refresh, lock back in, and focus on what your next goal is. So certainly this is not, I think the team event, again, is great experience. You learn a lot from it, but it's not a complete one-to-one for what's going to happen in the individual event. So I'm excited for them to put this behind. The day is new and to continue fresh the next day.
You mentioned it. We have plenty of figure skating left throughout the entirety of Milan Cortina. You mentioned, what you watched from Japan, what you watched from the US. When I'm watching, I'm just looking at it like, wow, everybody's good and everyone's amazing and everything is perfect. So for those of us who don't have the same kind of context and nuance and background with figure skating that you have, what are some little tidbits, little nuggets that we should be watching for that kind of differentiates the elites from the rest of the group?
Mm-hmm. I mean, across the board, if you make it to the Olympics, you are next level. Like, you are incredible. And the joke goes, just throw in a random person from the street and see how they compare, and you'll get a good sense of how good these athletes are. But really, though, I think there are a couple of course, coming into this Olympics, we have the world. U.S. has the U.S. women's world champion, the men's world champion, and the dance world champion. And you can just see their quality will definitely be very clear. Each athlete, each of these disciplines has their own standout thing. So, for example, Ilya, he's coming in with all these quads. He has the ability to put down a 7-quad program. Amber, as we see on the screen, has an incredible triple axel, which really sets her apart and is just a really powerful, strong skater. And Alyssa's coming in as a world champion as well, who's consistently been clean. And we can see just her new sort of approach to skating has been super refreshing for the athletes to watch, and it's been very inspiring for these athletes that are that have competed in the past and be like, wow, that's amazing what she's doing. And then for the current skaters to really just to be able to see how clean and how consistent she's been over time. But everyone has their own little things. As you watch, people will just naturally gravitate towards the people that have some sort of reflection in themselves, and that's what's so beautiful about skating. We can tell a story, we can drive emotion and all these things. So across the board, I think we'll see excellent jumps, we'll see excellent spins, we'll see excellent choreography. But every athlete is so unique, and I would never want to discredit any of the athletes, whether they're vying for first place or all the way down. They all have really something special to bring.
What's the biggest adjustment for skaters when they first get on Olympic ice?
I think it's the space, right? Like there's a lot of venues that we go to that are quite large, but I think something about the Olympics just feels grand. And I think that's something that's really takes a little bit of a moment to sort of just like take it all in, think, okay, but then focusing again, hey, I have a job to do. I have an agenda. I have trained really hard for this. I know I can do this well. Let's focus on that and not worry about any of the other sort of thing, the uncontrollables. But this team clearly has shown that they're ready for it. They're ready for the moment. And I think the individual events will be even more indicative of that.
We started the show talking a little bit about Lindsey Vonn. Obviously, everybody saw the horrible accident she had. As an Olympian, when you see something like that and knowing everything that she's put into being on the slopes, what hits you?
Yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking. I think for her, just even having this step towards being even to qualify for the Olympics, to be in a space where she can get onto Olympic slopes is in itself just the most inspiring thing. And I hope that she is able to recover quickly and to set her sights on whatever the next step is for her. She's already a legend. There's nothing that you can take away from that. And I just think that she should be so proud of the work and the effort that she put in to get to this stage in itself. And of course, her storied, incredible journey in the sport. So she's truly a legend and someone and a name that we'll remember forever for being just one of the best.
Nathan, we appreciate your time all the way from Italy. Get adjusted, have some fun. You'll be back with us later in the week, I know, but we're super excited for this and can't wait to get more of your expertise as this unfolds. We are Winter Olympic stands on this show, so having you come on is an honor, and we're really excited for it. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Enjoy the pizza, Nathan.
Thanks for having me. Oh, yeah, I have one right here, so have that right now.
That's amazing.
For you.
It's amazing. He's got a much better assignment than we do. He gets to hang out in Italy. It's beautiful.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Nathan. Appreciate the time. By the way, Yahoo's got you covered all throughout the Olympics. We have tons of great guests that will be joining us from Italy. In the meantime, our final takeaways from Super Bowl 60. You'll hear them next. Yahoo Sports Daily.
At the very top of my list, we need finality to Aspinall versus Gunn.
Yeah.
We need finality to
let's go
this.
show. Have to.
I just want to see this fight play out because guess what? It was a very entertaining fight and it was playing out in a way that I think a lot of people didn't think it would play out. So I need to see that fight. I have to see that fight. The division needs to see that fight. They both need to see that fight. They both earned it and deserved it, and we can't move on without that fight.
Do the Spurs still take Dylan Harper over Con Knipple and VJ Edgecombe?
I think for me, if I was to do it all over again, I would still take the best pick available, and that is Dylan Harper. I mean, you see, he just is such an elite creator.
Prior to the draft, Mo, I was pretty consistent in saying that I would trade down and take a Con Knipple. Con at 4, I still think would have been the best possible outcome for San Antonio, and I feel that way even more strongly at this point.
All football teams are dams. Some of them have a ton of cracks. Some of them have a few cracks. It's all about who faces enough water pressure from their schedule to expose the cracks. Most of the time, when you're playing in the Big Ten or the SEC, you're going to face several tests that will expose your cracks. I don't think Ohio State did this year. They faced Texas early in the year, and they just never faced enough pressure to expose the cracks.
Did you notice that the scoring totals had fallen in the new year, that the New Year's resolution apparently was to bring physicality back?
A couple of years ago when it was all of a sudden everybody scored 50, 60, 70. And then like the air went out of the ball for a month. And it was like in the middle of the season, the way the rules were being called kind of changed and scoring started to drop.
Look, to be fair, Dan, it could be, hey, everyone just magically figured out how to play legal defense.
Oh, rate Bad Bunny's halftime performance. I'd love to get in those mentions just to see what that looks like from Yahoo Sports. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz. Look, yesterday's halftime show. It's funny. I tweeted out the of all the things that I tweeted out during the game, and I should have known this. All the things I tweeted out during the game got a little response to this or that. I had a very down the middle tweet on the halftime show, and all of a sudden, that's the thing that everybody had to have a hot take on. Like, here's the thing, Caroline. I watched it. I thought it was good. Like, I thought it was fine. Like, Bad Bunny is somebody that I like, and I thought that the performance, especially given the fact that it was during the day, so you don't have some of the same things you can do at nighttime, I thought it was really visually interesting. I bobbed my head. I thought Lady Gaga was great. I thought Ricky Martin was a really fun pull. I didn't expect to come into this thing. Like, I watched it, and I was like, yeah, that was it. Like, I get that now in today's political world, everybody has to have a big political take. I don't care about any of that. I just watched a halftime show that I thought was entertaining, and that's sort of the job of a halftime show. Even though I didn't understand a single word he was singing, I don't care.
It was so fun. I loved it, and I love Bad Bunny, but I can also acknowledge if there's an artist that I love whose performance I didn't love, that's okay. Like, I love Usher. Didn't love Usher's halftime performance. You could see my tweet there. There was creativity. There was visual storytelling. I thought visually it was just a beautiful production. It was colorful. There were so many little tidbits put in there, cultural tidbits, like the casitas and all of these aspects of Puerto Rican culture. You saw like the young Bad Bunny with him handing him the Grammy, which I thought was, so beautiful. A moment of like, look, you can be a young child in Puerto Rico, a young child growing up with nothing, and you can become a Grammy award-winning artist who's performing at the Super Bowl. I thought that was a very sweet and touching moment. There was the moment where Bad Bunny was climbing up the power lines, which I did some research kind of behind the scenes of what all of those little symbols meant. And it was kind of a political statement about the power grid in Puerto Rico, how so many lower income people in Puerto Rico are left without power really frequently because the power grid is just not strong enough. I thought, what a cool, not overly political way of making a political statement. And if you didn't know anything about that, you probably wouldn't even think twice about it. You probably thought it was just a cool moment. So I thought that, and at the end, together we are all America. It was just a very uplifting and encouraging and warm, fuzzy kind of performance where if Bad Bunny wanted to make a much darker political statement, given the current political climate that we're living in, I think he definitely could have. But instead, Bad Bunny took the stance of celebrating Latin American culture, celebrating where he comes from, celebrating love more than celebrating hate that you see that there. So I thought the statements that he made were very powerful and impactful. But if you want to take all of that away from it, it was just fun. It was booty shaking music. It was colorful. There were celebrities, not just the Lady Gagas and the Ricky Martins, but we saw Jessica Alba and Cardi B and Carol G and Alex Earl and Robert Acuna in the casita dancing. So I just thought it had everything that you would want from a Super Bowl halftime performance. It was energy. It was fun. It was entertaining. And if you didn't watch it, you missed out.
Yeah, well, look, realistically, the number of people that immediately clap back with some sort of a political statement, I'm vapid. I'm very, very, when it comes to my music, I don't need deep, tremendous meaning in most of it. I just don't. Even as a person that has gold and platinum records behind my head and all over this office from my career, I don't need music to make some massive statement for me personally. And if you do, that's great. I just enjoyed the beat. So, for me, it was as simple as fun. I was shaking in my seat. I enjoyed it. And, did I know every song? No, I consider myself somewhat a Bad Bunny fan, but I was excited for it. Did I know every single moment of it? No. Did I care? No, because frankly, I was shaking in my seat. And that to me was the entertainment. I don't speak Spanish, so I didn't understand every word. And that's okay too. Not everything has to be for everybody. So I looked at all of it and of course, immediately got comments on, well, the other halftime show was better, to which I did clap back to some people and ask, how would you know? How could you possibly, right now, how could you have watched both? If you decided that the halftime show sucked, but you refused to watch it, then I don't really care what you take, because you see it there. It was a fun halftime show. I didn't know a bunch of songs and don't speak Spanish, but my head was bobbing and I thought it was visually interesting. Really cool. I, like you, afterwards found out some of the symbolism, but also the symbolism probably wasn't really meant for me. And so I can also look around and say, that's okay. I didn't really care about symbolism. I had a good time. People that did care deeply about the symbolism, I love that for you. I love that it connected with you in some sort of a way. I think that's the beautiful part of music. There are plenty of artists that are out there that are wildly successful whose music I don't really like and I don't really relate to. That doesn't mean they suck. It just means it's not for me. So I can look at any musical performance and say, okay, but to your point, I much preferred Bad Bunny personally to what we saw from Usher. Frankly, I like Bad Bunny better than I like Kendrick Lamar last year. I like Bad Bunny better than I liked The Weeknd a few years ago. I remember when Disney did a horrible Lion King halftime show that was just god awful with all the, that was terrible. So I remember plenty. I didn't think Coldplay with all the special guests was all that great, and I was in the stadium for that one. I didn't really the list goes on and on of halftime performances that I don't think were all that great. Am I going to remember Bad Bunny for the rest of my life as one of the awesome, oh my God, iconic? Is it Prince singing Purple Rain in the rain outside at the halftime? No, it wasn't to me. But did I really like it? Did I bob my head with it? Yeah. So I think it's okay to admit that not everything has to be great or sucks. It can be what it is to different people. So I that was my least hot take, and it somehow became a hot take because everybody has to yell about the politics involved in all of this.
And hey, if you watched it and you didn't love it, that's okay. If you didn't watch it because it was too different and too scary, then that says more about you than I really need to know. If we said no to everything that was different or scary or sounded different than what we're normally used to, then this world would be a really boring place. If it just wasn't for you, if you just didn't like it, if you, weren't entertained, then that's fine. That's art. Not every single piece of art or performance has to speak to your soul. That's okay. I would say this one and then the Dr. Dre Snoop Dogg halftime show in LA a couple of years ago are probably
that
two
was
of my
great. That
most
one.
favorite Super Bowl halftime performances. That one was awesome. And I think the two things that I see very like closely tied between those two was it was just visually interesting. Like the house and then every room of the house in that Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg halftime show. It was fun. I was constantly entertained. There was constantly something new to look at. That's how I think the Super Bowl halftime show was last night. Like every 5 seconds, there was a new something. There was a new person. There was a new color. There was a new dance. There was a new something. There were so many different songs that kept you constantly entertained. And I think both had very strong cultural messages that weren't shoved down your throat. It was just things that you could enjoy watching, but you also could pick up on how culturally important this was. Dr. Dre and Snoop, it was how important the culture of hip hop in Los Angeles was. And for Bad Bunny, it was, Latin American culture. And I thought those were two very fun things. And if you just didn't want to pull out your AP literature brain and deep dive into every single little symbol, you didn't have to. You could just enjoy it for what it was. I also saw that it was the most watched halftime show of all time. Bad Bunny was 135 million people watched last night. So very, very cool moment for him.
Well, and I will remind everybody, as I have repeatedly, that's just the Nielsen rating. That doesn't include all the people globally that watched it. And that was the audience on this. The audience on this was meant for international expansion in many ways, as Bad Bunny was the most downloaded artist in the world last year. I pointed that out, and I've had people clap back to me and say, well, he wasn't the most downloaded artist in the United States. I will remind you, he was the 5th most downloaded artist in the United States. So if your answer is he's not popular here, he's not popular with you, and that's okay. Like, as we look at those still images, I think one of the craziest and coolest parts of the halftime show was that I forgot I was watching a stadium halftime show sometimes. The way they brought in the grass and the way they created forced perspective throughout the way that they filmed it, I thought was really interesting. The way they bounced back and forth between some segments that were live, some segments that I think were probably pre-taped to allow him some element to move back and forth with the dancers was really incredible. I mean, it was just incredibly edited and incredibly shot and incredibly visually interesting. And yes, somebody actually got married. Caroline Fenton, the first thing I thought is, how the hell was that not you? That was supposed to be you. You are engaged. You were supposed to get married at the halftime show. What do we do?
I didn't know that was an option. I literally said that to my fiance last night. I was like, did we not think about inviting Bad Bunny to our wedding so we could get married at the Super Bowl halftime show? Now it's too late for us. Great. Wedding's already ruined. Hasn't even started. We had the camera work. There was so many elements of the camera work last night. Like, it looked like there was one instance where Bad Bunny was maybe on like a motorized thing with the camera and he was looking right into the camera. Mm-hmm. So cool. So visually interesting to watch. I had a great time watching it. I genuinely enjoyed it. I think we also have to remember the NFL has a big international push. That's the reason why we're getting games in Brazil and Mexico City and Germany and London and Australia. The NFL wants to increase its global reach. What better way to do that than one of the, if not the biggest artists in the globe?
Literally, Roger Goodell, in an interview last week in San Francisco, said that they will always keep in mind expansion. He was asked about expanding the league with more teams, and he literally mentioned international expansion could always be a possibility. Just a reminder of, like, this is a long play. This is a long play for them. And look, here's the hottest hot of all hot takes. This is actually a hot take. If you didn't watch this halftime show and you chose to watch the Kid Rock halftime show, great. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, look, that's fine. If you chose to tune away and watch something else, great. I don't care. I don't care. Like, whatever you got for your halftime, I think the important thing is that the NFL, obviously, they put on a show that they put a lot of thought into. Bad Bunny put a lot of thought into it. I respected the musical approach of it. I respected the way it was filmed. I respected the hell out of the way the entire halftime show was put together. If you didn't, That's okay. Everybody can have the things that they like. Hopefully you've liked hanging out with us. We're back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. for more Eastern, 9 a.m. Eastern for more Yahoo Sports Daily. Come hang out with us. Thanks for watching.
Give us your breakout fighters of 2026.
You're not going to believe that. Number one is Manchester top teams, Atiba Gutierrez. I think he's going to be the next big African star. Already is.
He's chiseled out of stone. He's got unbelievable power, great skill, huge for the weight class. Very, very impressive. And again, you speak to the guys over at Manchester Top Team, they could not be more excited about his potential.
Usually I would dunk on a team that's 8-9 going to the playoffs. You don't deserve it. For Carolina, celebrate it. This was a big step forward season. However you got there, you wanted some hope. You wanted something to be happy about. You backed into it, fine. I don't care. The Panthers did have some quality wins this year. They did seem to be making progress. So for the Panthers, hey, step forward, good job, celebrate it. It's a really nice year for the Carolina Panthers to win this division no matter how they did it.
I don't know how anyone could expect Kalen DeBoer to get Alabama back to where Nick Saban had it, because he's not going to. I would suggest to you that had Nick Saban stuck around at Alabama, he wasn't getting Alabama back to where Nick Saban had it a decade prior. And that's Nick literal Saban. I don't think Kirby Smart's getting Georgia back to what Georgia was a few years ago. Dabo's not going to get Clemson back to what Clemson was. It's almost like the entire world has changed.
Oh, let's get to another factory of sadness. The Atlanta Falcons, who fired Raheem Morris after 2 8-9 seasons.
You got Bijan Robinson, you got Drake London. That was what Raheem Morris said when they asked him, why did you take this job?
Yep.
And you still got those guys. And you still got those two guys.